Well, I'm going to start this book review with a quip about journalism. You know, it is said that the difference between a journalist and a reporter is that the journalist is the hero of the story. And the exalted term journalist was not actually used when I began. I was mainly a typist, 18,000 words of news a week. But you know the case where you find out more about the interviewer or the reporter than you do about the guest or the author. And I guess I've been guilty of that. Here we have a great book, The Splendid and the Vile, Erik Larson. I have the book, I've read the book, I have the file. I just don't have Mr. Larson here because of circumstances. So let me start by saying I didn't know I was going to like this book as much as I did. You know, we have lots of books on World War II. We know how it came out. It was a long time ago. We know the usual suspects, Goering, Hess, Goebbels, Churchill. He adds Harriman, but he also adds a slice of their personal lives, including Churchill's family finances and comings and goings, and affairs and sex and all that good stuff. But he adds ordinary people as well. What was it like to go to a debutante ball, and what was a jazz club like? And the exquisite and excruciating and in detail, minute by minute description of some of the bombings. 57 straight nights of bombings, called The Splendid and the Vile because a lot of splendid, or what would have been called the gay life in those days, just carried on during the war, amazingly. But it was indeed vile. The graphic descriptions of bombing are vile. Now, the book begins with the bombing by dirigibles of London during World War One. I've seen the pockmarks on some buildings in London, but I didn't think of World War One in that way. Now, Erik Larson adds some interesting facts about Churchill. I think we knew that Churchill was quite a character. He was in the bath all the time, whether it was on a train or in the White House or in his country places or at number 10. Baths all the time. Getting out of the bath naked, still dictating, and famously saying to Franklin Roosevelt with a cigar in one hand and a brandy in the other, "I have nothing to hide, Mr. President." Interesting guy. We also knew how energetic and efficient he was despite his age. He wrote and demanded one-page memos. Author Larson describes him as a searchlight that was looking for the most important things on any given day. He also absolutely mercilessly mocked verbosity, saying expunge, and he didn't even use that big word. Get rid of all this balderdash from your memos. If he were alive today, he actually specified terminology that you could not use in a memo. If he were alive today, this circle back and touching base and reaching out and all that falderall would not have made it into your memo. Now, what else about Churchill? A few new things. He survived a confidence vote. He didn't have to have a confidence vote during the war, but he did. He insisted, with great PR effect, firing anti aircraft guns when he knew they'd have little effect. He kept a machine gun in the boot of his car. That's a trunk for you Americans. He kept a revolver, regularly misplaced it, and a cyanide cap in his fountain pen. I mean, what a character. Many of his speeches, as you can hear and read about in the Churchill War Museums, the bunker, the underground facility that he kept in London, a fabulous museum. Many of his speeches were panned at the time. In fact, Larson documents something I didn't know. He read one speech with a cigar in his mouth. A lot of people thought that he was drunk. This is on the BBC. And by the way, he didn't deliver any of those. All those speeches that we've heard of his were not live recordings. There was no recording in the House of Commons. He walked over to the BBC and redid the speech and re-recorded it as late as 1955. Okay, colorful family. Oh, and by the way, rationing. He figured out a way around the rationing and had extra uh, dollops of champagne, brandy, cigars, etc. Now, honorable mention to the Canadian Max Beaverbrook. Churchill said, "Some people take drugs, I take Max." Evelyn Waugh's Scoop, Believe in the Devil, may have kind of channeled Max Beaverbrook, the newspaper baron. And he took over both PR and aircraft production and did a marvelous job. His office sign read, "Committees take the punch out of war." And I believe that adequately sums up the value of committees. He resigned 14 times to great effect. Goering, who had been an ace in World War I in his own right, obviously gained enough weight that he couldn't get up into the air in a plane of the era. But he had limited technical knowledge of modern aircraft and vastly overestimated the Luftwaffe's capability and underestimated the RAF's, thank goodness. There is a lot of interesting stuff in The Splendid and the Vile about technology. Churchill was a real fan of gizmos and technology. A sticky bomb, as you saw referenced in Saving Private Ryan, a mine curtain in the air. I mean, some of the stuff was just daft. The funnies were not daft. Means floating tanks and tanks that clear landmines and so on. That did work. There was an early navigation system for attacking flyers and for jamming for defenders. There were huge supply chain problems. You think we've had problems recently, but Churchill and the government and people he hired could not figure out how many planes they had. And I think he once quipped, well, Rolls Royce knows how many cars that they make. I don't know why we can't figure out how many planes we're making. 20% of Londoners didn't hear the air raid sirens, and many didn't bother to leave their homes. The top floors of hotels were not prime real estate because that's where the bomb would hit. As a matter of fact, the U.S. ambassador would take mattresses down from his fifth floor rooms down to the main floor and sleep on the floor for protection. Okay, news. To me, anyway, Churchill feared that France might declare war on England after the Royal Navy destroyed the French fleet. Goebbels used fake news radio reports to great effect. The Germans were building grandstands in Berlin for their victorious army right almost to the end of the war. Hess had two flights. I didn't realize it. I don't know how he kept it a secret after he had one flight, turned around, landed, told his staff what he was doing. They kept it a secret for a while, and then he had a second flight. Interesting. Now, the gay life, balls, debutante parties, sex, mattresses and pillows in the lobby of the Ritz Hotel, and Claridge's. Now, if you ever go to London, go to Claridge's. There's a little wee bar called Le Fumoir. And for those of you with a few vocabulary words in French, you will find it ironic that there is no smoking in Le Fumoir. Interesting hotel. The Vile. Women in maternity wards who were pregnant were put under their beds with a mattress on top of their bodies. I mean, can you imagine enduring that? Can you imagine the PTSD that would follow? Rumors. Interesting rumors. Let me read a little thing here. I think this is outside of the ACTRA rules and copyright provisions, so I'll just read a couple of the rumors. In the Orkneys, the Shetlands, Dover, and elsewhere, intercepted letters reported that thousands of bodies had washed ashore after a failed invasion attempt. This rumor was particularly persistent. German parachute troops dressed as women were said to have landed in Leicestershire, in the Midlands, and elsewhere on the North Sea coast. Not true. German planes were believed to be dropping poison cobwebs. Rumor is spreading rapidly but dying, Home Intelligence reported. A rumor circulating in Wimbledon held that the enemy is preparing to use high explosive bombs of terrifying dimensions, destined to wipe out the entire suburb, wipe it off the map. Seriously informed that this has taken an unhealthy grip on Wimbledon imagination and no such bombs existed. Thank goodness that's... Oh, wait a minute. One more rumor. Gruesome and common rumor in circulation. Large numbers of corpses in bombed public shelters are to remain there, the shelters being bricked up to form communal graves. Rumors prove to be very stubborn indeed, and don't we have some interesting and odd and unproven rumors going around today? Okay, there is a moment-by-moment, exquisitely painful and detailed account of jazz music in an underground club and a bomb landing on it. I won't spoil it for you, but it is really worth a read. And then there's this business of travel. How did you get around? We hear, Churchill met with Roosevelt and Churchill went and looked at the troops in Normandy and so on. I mean, man, travel was really difficult, not just because it was war, But if you were the U.S. ambassador going from Washington to London, it might take you 3 days. You take a clipper ship. I wish we still had them that land on the water on pontoons. You might go via Bermuda, the Azores, Lisbon, somewhere else, up into an airfield somewhere, and then a train down to London. 3 days. But the travel was exquisite, far more elegant than train travel or even the beautiful cruises today, the clipper ships. So there it is, Erik Larson, Splendid, and the Vial. Wish he could be here. He must have another booking. Worth a read, and it is a bestseller. Enjoy.